Welcome Potassium. Thank you for checking out our math fact review video. The purpose of this video is to just kind of go over all the math facts that we've covered so far this year. There's quite a bit. And the reason why I'm deciding to kind of go over all of them again is because at this point in the year, the children should start seeing all different kinds of math facts mixed up into their homework or their classwork. And sometimes it can get a little bit confusing as to which type of factor they're doing or how to solve it. And the purpose of this is trying to give you a few hints on what I would typically do in the classroom for my children. That way you can kind of reinforce it or help them at home. And we'll start right from the very first math fact that we learned. And as we're going through, again, you can pause it and just kind of work on what you feel your child needs the most practice on. You can kind of skip a few things if you feel like your child has mastered +1s or +2s, whatever that might be. Just keep going forward. And again, this is always a video you can come back and check. That way you can kind of keep working on some of those things and building these foundations that the children will need going forward. But right from the very first math fact that we start learning were our doubles, right? And a doubles math fact is something simple where you're adding two of the same numbers together to be like, 2 plus 2 or 3 plus 3, 4 plus 4, 5 plus 5, and so on and so forth, right? So the very first thing I teach my kids to look for is the math symbol that they're looking at. Whether it's a plus or minus, that's going to tell them whether they're going to add more numbers together or if they're going to subtract numbers. And so they understand that adding numbers means counting forwards. So you can remind them that you can use the vocabulary addition, subtraction. And if they, for some reason, don't remember, you can just remind them, addition means counting forwards, adding more. Subtraction, the same thing, counting backwards. So always have to identify the math symbol first. In this case, doubles are always going to be plus. So the plus is already going to be there for them. So you just need to understand, how to add these numbers. These first few numbers here, and I forgot to write 1 plus 1. I'll write it over here too. 1 plus 1, excuse me, that's not a 1. And my videos are going to be one take videos because if I make a mistake, typically I would have fixed that mistake in front of the students. And I want them to see that it's okay to make mistakes and to correct them. Mistakes are opportunities for us to learn. And the kids enjoy correcting me too. So it was always a very exciting thing for them to find a mistake that I made that I didn't catch, and they can go ahead and correct me. And that's perfectly fine. If they see a mistake at home too, allow them to correct it because it's just part of learning. So back to this 1 plus 1. These first sets of facts are super easy because, from 1 through 5, they can go ahead and add these together using their hands. And it's the first strategy that I taught them. For example, 2 plus 2, 2 fingers on one hand, 2 fingers on the other hand, put them together. 2 plus 2 becomes 4, right? Now, 3 plus 3, same thing. 3 fingers together. 3 plus 3 equals 6. So as long as they have enough fingers to count the top number and the bottom number together, it shouldn't be a problem using hands. The problem is when we run into some of our bigger doubles, such as 6 plus 6, 7 plus 7, 8 plus 8, 9 plus 9, and 10 plus 10, right? So there's lots of ways that the children started solving this. A lot of them memorized the doubles facts using that doubles rap song. If you'd like, I can make a doubles rap video for you guys, which would be really fun and kind of embarrassing, but I'll be happy to do it. But if they weren't able to memorize these types of math facts, I taught them to use their nose to count. And it's something silly like this. And so they get the number of fingers of one of the numbers, right? So it's 6 plus 6, they get 6 fingers, right? And they use their nose to count their fingers twice, such like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But then we keep going. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now we get our answer. 6 plus 6 equals 12. And we can do that for any of these as long as we have the fingers to count. And we're not going to go past 10 plus 10, but 7 plus 7. 5 on one hand, 2 on the other is 7. Let's use our nose to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 7 plus 7 is going to be 14. And again, we can do that for all these other facts. Super easy. If you have a 100 chart handy, you can also use a 100 chart to figure out the answers, right? So you would find, for example, 8 on a 100 chart, and I'll attach a 100 chart on Parents Square that you guys can access and use it if you need it. But you would point to the 8, and then you would count forward 8 more times, right? So if you're following the number line, you're pointing at 8, it'll be 8, and then if you count 8 more times, it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, until you get your answer. And those are typically the 2 ways that I taught the children how to do their doubles, right? Again, whatever works for your child is probably the best strategy. I didn't ask them to do all the different ways at once because it could be a little bit overwhelming. And so once you find something that works for your child, stick with it, right? So that's our doubles. The doubles are very important because they came around later on in the year, which we'll get to later. But give me 1 second. We are now going to move on to our plus or minus 1 facts. Now, plus or minus 1s are super easy too. So I'm going to have 2 sets here. We're going to do both of them at the same time because they're that easy, I think. So a plus 1 fact is when we have any type of math fact where you're adding 1 to a number. And I'm just going to write a couple here. So let's do 3 plus 1, and down here I will do 1 plus 7. And excuse my handwriting a bit, it's kind of wobbly on the carpet, but I think we can see what we're doing here. And over here on this side, we will do 5 minus 1, and let's do 9 minus 1 over here, right? So going back to following certain steps that help the students kind of get this work. Again, the first thing we're going to look for is the type of math symbol we're looking for. Plus sign means we're going to add more numbers together. Minus means they're going to subtract numbers, right? Some of the issues that we see as we learn new facts is that sometimes they get them a little mixed up, right? They'll do a plus 1 like a minus 1, or a minus 1 like a plus 1. Or if they have a certain number or certain types of facts all in a row, like a bunch of plus 1s in a row, and then the next row is minus 1s, they might keep doing them as a minus 1, right? So just make sure that they pay attention to the plus or minus sign. Then, to make sure it's a plus 1 fact or a minus 1, you clearly have to look for the number 1, right? So all of these here are either going to be plus 1s or minus 1s. The steps that I give them is as follows. First, I have them circle the number that's not 1. And it's the same for plus 1 or minus 1. They circle the number that is not 1. By now, many of the students don't need to circle the number that's not 1, and that's okay. If they got to the point where they're confident in their abilities, let them challenge themselves to do it, right? So after we circle a number that's not 1, for a plus 1, it's as simple as just adding 1 more, counting forward 1 time. And they can do this in their brain and in their heads. They're really smart. So 3 plus 1. You find 3, you add 1 more, we're going to land on, what do you guys think? 4, right? Because 4 is the next number on the number line, right? Now, down here, 1 plus 7, it's still a plus 1 even if the 1 is on top. And children understand, the class understands now that in terms of addition, it doesn't matter what number is on top or the bottom. We're still going to get the same answer. So again, we circle the number that's not 1, starting at 7. If we add 1 more, we're going to get 2. And you're right, 8. I'm going to switch markers now. This one is not as dark as I'd like. Give me 1 second. I'm going to use blue now. Now, a minus 1, it's almost exactly the same as a plus 1, except now because we're using a subtraction, a minus sign, we're going to count backwards. So after circling the number that's not 1, so 5, they're going to find 5, and they're going to take 1 away or subtract 1 number, which means just count backwards 1 time. So if we start at 5, we take 1 away, we're going to land on 4. Very good, guys. And the same thing here. 9 minus 1. We circled 9 already. Starting at 9, if we subtract one number or take one away, we're going to get to 8. Very good. And if you feel like your child needs to practice plus or minus 1 right now, you can go ahead and pause it. And on a separate sheet of paper, just do a handful of plus 1s and minus 1s. Mix them up a bit, see if they can switch back and forth from plus 1 and minus 1. Now, let's go ahead and move forward now to plus 2s, right? And I'll teach plus 2s pretty much in the same manner, right? Let me write a couple here. So it's 4 plus 2. Let's do 3 minus 2 over here. Let's do 2 plus 6. And let's do 10 minus 2. Again, the very first thing that the student should be looking for to help them see if they're counting more numbers or taking them away is the plus or minus sign, right? Help them identify that really fast. Then they can look at the second set of numbers or the 2 set of numbers to see what type of math fact it's going to be. If they see it's a plus 2, whether it's at the top or the bottom, they're going to know that they have to count forwards. Because it's plus 2, they're going to count forwards 2 times, right? And the same thing for minus 1. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So let's just do our plus 2s, for example. We see it's a plus sign. We're going to count forwards. We see a 2 right here. We know it's a plus 2. Same thing down here. Again, we're going to circle the number that is not 2. So we're going to circle 4. And down here, we're going to circle 6. And just as we did before, using our 100 chart, a number line, our brains, whatever it might be that works for us, starting at these numbers that are not 2, we tell them to skip count forwards or add 2 more, right? So for example, skip counting means just you skip the next number and you say the next one. So starting at 4, if we skip count, we skip 5 and we're going to land on 6. Very good. Now down here we have 2 plus 6 is still a plus 2. So starting at 6, if we add 2 more, we skip count, we skip 7, and we land on 8. Very good. And by now, when we were in class, the children were really good at this. They remember they can skip count in their brains without even having to look at a number line, which is fantastic. So if they don't need the 100 chart, don't force them to use it. Have them challenge themselves. We say that a lot in class, you know, and when we say challenge ourselves, it means that we're not afraid to try doing something hard, right? Even though we might get it wrong or we might make a mistake. Now, back to our minus 2s, same strategy. We look at the math symbol. It's a minus, which means we're now going to subtract numbers or take them away. Very easy stuff, right? So, of course, we're going to circle the number that's not 2, right? I circle 3 and 10. Now, again, if you're using the 100 chart or the number line, find the number that's not 2 on that line. So over here, if we found 3, instead of adding 2 more now, we're going to subtract 2 or skip count backwards 2 times, right? So if we take 2 away from 3, we start at 3, we skip 2, and finally we land on 1, right? Same thing down here. We found 10, we're subtracting 2 or taking 2 away, we're going to skip 9 and land on 8. My 8's a little sideways, so let me go ahead and fix that. There you go, right? Now, pause it here if you need to practice plus 2s. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on. Give me 1 second here. Now, another super easy fact, plus or minus 0. Right? So, anytime we add 0 or subtract 0 from a number, we're always going to get the same answer depending on what we do, right? So, let's just do a handful of them. Let's do 1 plus 0, and let's do 7 plus 0. And down here, just for fun, we're going to do 200 plus 0. Over here, let's do 4 minus 0, 9 minus 0, and again, just for fun, let's do 1,000 minus 0, right? So it's the same strategy for both of these types of facts. It doesn't matter if it's a plus in front of it or a minus. What I always tell the class, and they've memorized this phrase, is that plus or minus 0, the answer will always be the number that's not 0. And they'll shout it out in class at me. It's wonderful. And that's the way they can do this really fast. And if you can't see these bottom ones, I'm sorry, but I think you can recreate those at home. Now, 1 plus 0, the answer is always a number that's not 0. So 1, right? 7 plus 0, the answer is always a number that's not 0. 7. 200 plus 0, it doesn't matter how big or small the number is. If you're adding 0 to it, you're going to get the same number. So 200 plus 0 is 200. Same thing with our minus. It doesn't matter. You can't take 0 away from anything, right? If you have nothing, you can't take anything away. 4 minus 0, the answer will be, what do you guys think? Yeah, 4. Very good. 9 minus 0, same thing. The answer will always be the number that's not 0. In this case, 9. Very good. Finally, down here, 1,000 minus 0. Is this the hardest one here? I don't think so. Because again, the answer will always be the number that's not 0, which is 1,000 in this case. Very good, very good. Now, let's move along to our next fact. If you need a little break, you can go ahead and pause it, get up, get your wiggles out, or just move on to the next type of fact. Whatever feels good to you. Now, let's go now to subtracting the same number. And I chose this fact now because the strategy is very similar to what we just did. When you subtract the same number is kind of like the opposite of a double, right? In a double, you're adding the two same numbers together. In this one, you're subtracting the same numbers together. And I'm only just going to do a handful too because it's very brief. So we can do 3 minus 3, right? Let's do 9 minus 9, and just do a funny number. Not funny, but a bigger number. 25 minus 25. They're not going to see that, but I'm just showing an example that if you're subtracting the same number from the top number, your answer will always be 0, right? And we can see it really fast here with this one. If we use our fingers, we have 3 fingers on one hand. If we take 3 fingers away, we're going to end up with 0, right? Same thing with 9. 9 minus 9, you're going to get 0. 25 minus 25, you're going to get 0. It doesn't matter how big the number is. It could be 1 million minus 1 million, and your answer will always be 0. Right? So this one, the children didn't really struggle with this one at all. They did really well. They're so smart. Now, let's move on to a fact that some of the students had a hard time with because their foundational skills and their regular doubles fact might not have been so strong. But we're going to move on now to our doubles plus 1 fact, right? And what that sounds like is, or what it looks like is like this, where you have 2 numbers. For example, let's do 3 plus 4. Over here, we will do 5 plus 6. Let's do 7 plus 6. 8 plus 9. Just to name a few, right? And so this particular fact has a few more steps to make sure you're recognizing you're doing it the correct way. Right away, again, we look for the plus sign. That's going to tell us that we're counting together, or we're adding numbers together. Now, the next thing that I wanted to look at is compare the 2 sets of numbers, right? How I talk to the class, or how I taught it to the class, is for them to see if the 2 numbers they see are neighbors on the number line, right? And what that means is that if they're neighbors on the number line, they are going to be right next to each other, right? So clearly all of these are neighbors in the number line. They're one right after the other. Now the step here is that once we identify that they're neighbors, we're going to circle the smaller number. And the children know that the smaller number between two numbers is the number that comes first if you were counting by ones, right? So now we circle the smaller number. Now we have to double it. This is where knowing all our doubles comes in handy, right? And so that's a phrase that I told the class, is you double the smaller number. So 3 plus 4, we found the circle the smaller number, we double it, which gives us 6, you're right. And now because 4 is just one more than 3, we add one more to 6. So the double of 3 is 6, one more will give us 7. The same thing with this other one. The double of 5 is gonna be 10, very good. Add one more, we'll get to 11. And so on and so forth, right? We have 6, 6 being the smaller number from 7. We double 6. What's the double of 6? 12, very good. Now we add one more, we get 13. Now let's do this other one here. We circled 8, 8 being the smaller number. What's the double of 8? Now again, if you don't remember right away, you can use your fingers to count, your nose, number line. 8 plus 8 is gonna be, you're right, 16. If we add one more, it'll give us 17, right? So again, now would be a good time to go ahead and pause this and practice this one, because this one can get a little bit confusing or tricky because it has a few additional steps. Now, if you're ready to move on, we're gonna go ahead and look at some of our newer facts here that we've just recently practiced. And the first one is finding a sum of 10, right? So for example, a sum of 10 is where you have a math fact, an addition math fact, where the answer will be 10, right? So what the children are trying to find is what combination of numbers they can add together to make 10. So how you'll see them on the worksheet is you'll have the answer 10 at the bottom, and you'll either have like a circle, excuse me, that's really small. You'll have like a circle or a square, where you have a missing number. Now, there are really two ways of how you can do this, right? So let's just kind of fill this out. 1, 3, 4, and 5. And we can go all the way up to 10, right? But right away, because we're only adding up to 10, the children can very readily use their fingers, right? In this case, they're going to pay attention to the number they are given, not the 10, right? I wanted to find out how many more they need, right? So if the number that we're given is 1, so we start with 0. If we have 1, we can count the number of fingers that we need to get to 10, right? So we're not counting 1, we're counting the fingers that are not standing up, which would be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 plus 1 is going to give us 10. Now the other way that they can solve this problem using their fingers is still just they start with 10 and they take away the number they are given. So 3 plus blank equals 10. If we start with 10, they gave us 3. If we take 3 fingers away, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 left over, right? So 3 plus 7 is going to give you 10. Now, another thing that we used often in class is something we call the number rainbow, and the number rainbow looks something like this. So you write out, starting from 0, all the numbers up until the answer you need to find. So it'll look like this. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, barely had room. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect all the outer numbers together using a line in this rainbow shape, right? So 0 and 10 are together. 1 and 9 are together. 2 and 8 are together, 3 and 7 together, 4 and 6, and 5 and 5. Right? So how this works is that they're able to identify what number plus what other number is going to get 10. For example, the one we're missing here is blank plus 4 equals 10. They gave us 4 already. If we find 4 on a number rainbow, we just follow the rainbow all the way to the next number. So 4 will be connected to 6. So that's the number that they need to write down. 6 plus 4 is going to be 10. This one's really easy too, because they'll understand that 5 plus another number is going to give them 10. And if they remember their doubles, they know that 5 plus 5 equals 10, right? And it could be with any combination. 0 plus 10 equals 10. 1 plus 9 equals 10. 2 plus 8 equals 10. And so on and forth, right? Now, we did sums of 10. Now, the most recent fact that we're looking at, and it's a very easy one too, is subtracting a number from 10. And it's super, super easy. I'll just do it down here, right? You have 10 minus 2, for example, 10 minus 1. Let's do 10 minus 7. And then one last one, 10 minus, let's do 6. I mean, excuse my handwriting here, it's a little crooked, but I think it'll work. But again, they can use their fingers for this one. Since we're starting with 10 and we're subtracting, just have them use their fingers. Start at 10 and just subtract the number that it tells you to subtract. So 10 minus 2, you have to start at 10, take 2 away. You should have how many fingers left? Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Very good. The same thing, start with 10, take 1 away, you get to 9. And they can use their fingers all the way through. 10 minus 7, start with 10 fingers, take 7 away, 5, 6, 7, they have 3 left. So 10 minus 7 equals 3, and they'll be able to see that 10 minus 6 equals 4. And that's about as far as we've gotten today, or so far this year. I know this is a bit of a lengthy video. I can see that it's already getting near half an hour, but again, you're always welcome to skip around. You don't have to watch the whole thing through. If your child has a good foundation on all their math facts going forward, you can just kind of revisit this as you need to. But again, you can just kind of see how everything is. I hope this was able to help some of you, if not all of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. But this is our math fact review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.